Welcome back to the shed. So tonight we're going to do something kind of fun. Um, I have a couple contractors in right now who are doing some work on the house. We're putting in an in-law suite, so we're making some, putting in like a kitchenette for my in-laws. They're going to live with us in the back room. So while the contractors are here, got chatting with them, and they have this little tool pouch that they've worn out. So the snap is snapped on it, and at first they said, "Hey, can you just like sew it across there so I can put it back on their belt?" Easy peasy, right? And I say, "Yeah, sure, I can do that, but I also do leather stuff, so why don't I make you a new one? You know, everybody wins, right?" So they picked out a couple colors, and we're gonna go through and try to figure this out. So basically, what it is this is a little pouch, keeps his knife in there, pen, pencil, that kind of thing. It's not overly complicated. Uh, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some rough measurements from here. I'm gonna use this as like an inspiration for the design and see how it goes. If it works, if it turns out well, then hey, great! I get to give the guys a gift to say thanks for doing some good work around the house. If it doesn't turn out, then hey, at the very least, I'll just sew a line across here, and then that works. Uh, but anyway, I'm gonna reposition the camera here, and we will see what we get done. All right. Okay. So let's start off taking a couple measurements here. And I'm going to apologize now for having the camera zoomed in. See if I can zoom in a little bit so you can see my workspace here. So the little pouch that the knife's going to go in, it measures about four and a quarter at the top and 3 at the bottom. So that gives me an idea of what I need to do as far as a little bit wider at the top, a little bit narrow at the bottom. And it is about 5. So the first 4 to the straight line here, and then there's about an inch that goes down. So about three and a half. Sorry. So it's about 3.5 to here, goes to up there. Okay. And then it's about 3. Let's see here. So at its widest part here, it's about 3.25, 3.5. So let me do a bit of a rough sketch here. So there's going to be 2 main pieces to this. So the first bit is going to be the back, which needs to be about, let's see here, say about 9 inches tall. Okay, so that's 9 that way. And then I want to go about 3.5 this way. Yeah, 3.5. And then we're gonna do some oval punches here at the top for our belt loop to loop through. And then down here towards the bottom, we need this pouch to be sort of like this. So it needs to be about 3.5 and about 4 across the top there. So that doesn't seem too crazy. What I'm also going to try and do is this pouch has a couple of these little like pencil loops back here. So I'm going to see if I can't do a couple of little loops in there. Now, for the leather that we're picking out, one of them is going to have this nice red Italian. One of them is going to have this blue. And they're both going to have this pattern on the back and on the front of the little pocket in order to give us a little bit of larger stability and thickness. So, and it looks really cool. Well, I really need to get a better camera setup here. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to move this camera to a different location so that's easier and I'm not going to be tripping on things. So bear with me for a minute. Okay, right, so first things first, what we're going to do is we're going to measure out our pieces for our back. So I said I was going to do 3.5 by 9, so let's measure that out. Okay. You know what? Let me grab my larger square so I can make sure I start off with a good straight line. So right now I'm just going to mark the leather with my my fabric marking pen. I just want to make sure that I get a good straight line here to start. I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, but this pen, it leaves, it's like a silver paint, and it rubs off. Like if you just take your thumb and like just rubs right off with your thumb. Sometimes maybe you need to spit on it a little bit, but it's visible to me, which is good. And I use these, actually I buy the refills in bulk because I use them so much. Okay, so there's my good straight line. Let's do another good straight line this way. Okay. There we go. So there's our starting. So we said we want to go 9 inches by 3.5. So if I go 9 inches down from this corner, that will be right here, and then 3.5 there. 9, 3.5. Okay. There we go. So we have two 3.5 by 9. Now let's take our original one and see how that lines up. So that, yep, that looks about right, because this part here would be normally through your belt loop. That looks pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about that. So let's cut this out. And, oh, let me get a sharp knife, sharp blade. Always start each project with a clean blade. Little tip, go to your local pharmacy and pick up one of these diabetic needle disposal kits. They're free, well, here in Ontario anyway, they're free. It'll take me a lifetime to fill it up, and everything is all nice, neat, safe, contained. Never need to worry about stubbing my toe on this. And these utility knife blades, I got them, this set I got from AliExpress, but you can buy these blades in bulk at Home Hardware for the price of admission, practically free, considering how many times I go through these. Okay, so let's get this cut out. Oh, you know what? Let's get the light on. See a little better. There we go. That helps matters. Okay. Okay. So let's get this big piece off the table for a minute. So this leather is called Utility Texas Embossed Suede Split. Where's my camera angle here? Here. It was on a flash sale at Tandy last week. I am not sponsored or funded or anything like that. Bought everything myself. But hey, Tandy social marketing folks, if you're listening, give me a ring. Okay. There we go. And oh, the fire is running low. I'll be right back. I need to go put some wood on the fire. I don't know where you are in the world right now, but here in Lindsay, I have a snowbank beside my driveway that's 6 feet tall, which is actually average for a lot of Southern Ontario right now. I don't want to think about what's going on in Barrie right now. Okay, so what we're going to do now is these are some straight edges. I want to curve them a little bit. So, I have just the tool. Okay, so this is a Wuda 20 millimeter half corner round punch. So we're going to do this. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up the edges with my corner. What I'm going to do is I've got my grid here. This will line up with Okay, so to keep this consistent, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the long side of each of my corners here. This is, I believe, maybe a 1/2 inch grid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up one end with my mark. So I'm always going to have as close to a perfect corner as I can get. Okay. Trim this up. Now, normally I do the punching over on my granite block, but I really don't feel like moving the camera over there. Just for 2 quick cuts like this, right? Okay, mark our corners. Okay. Now, for anyone out there on YouTube who's watching this and thinking to themselves, oh, there's a better way to do this, there's a better tool or whatever. Probably. I am not doing this as a demonstration of the perfect way to do something. This is just a bit of a video diary of me trying to muddle my way through life. So here we are. We have ourselves with our corners. So, I'm going to trim this a little bit. Get rid of that little tuft. So, on our original, the way this is made is it's got like a canvas fabric with like a plastic stiffener, and the way that the factory made it is they did this layer of fabric around the edge in order to hide that sharp edge, which I'm going to replicate too. So we are going to use this leather for that job to go around the edge. So this is going to be the back. Then you have the blue or the red, and then this is going to go around the edge like that. So that'll look pretty good. So, okay, I need to do some math here. 3.5 times 2 is 7. 9 times 2 is 18. I'm terrible at math. Where the hell did my phone go? Seven plus 18, 25. Okay, so I need to cut a 25-inch long strip out of that darker leather. So, bear with me for a minute. This is probably where one of those speed montage things will come in. Okay, so these are definitely going to be longer than 25 inches. And actually what I'm going to wind up doing too is going a little bit longer. I'm going to cut them to probably about 27, so I have lots of extra room for I'm always like I like to cut these things a little bit longer than I really need, because what if I have a problem and I miscounted, right? So let's just give a straight cut here, and do straight cut here. And let's measure out 27 inches. So this ruler, this square is 24. So I know that's 24. So if I bring, so, okay, just do a small mark there. That's my 24 mark. And then 1, 2, 3. So this will be 27 inches. Okay. Simple enough. Okay, we're going to set this aside for a minute. And I'm going to put this aside because I can absolutely use this somewhere in some other project. Maybe even this one. Okay. Straighten this out. Okay, perfect. So, when we go, so what we're going to wind up doing is using this like, sort of like an edge binding this way. So what we're going to do is we are absolutely going to have to mark our stitching line on this bigger piece. We're also going to need to do it on this piece too. Let's see here. So I'm going to mark that now while I'm thinking about it. And I'm going to go a little closer in to the edge from what I normally do, because I'm going to have a lot of meat around the edges that I'm going to have to cover. So let's do that. That's about probably, oh, I'm not good at all the inches. Well, 5 millimeters anyway. What's that in inches? Is it like, well, that's a half, quarter. So a little under a quarter of an inch. Okay. And there's 2 done. Okay, perfect. So there's this, and then let me see if this stuff will take a mark from my yep, looks like this will take a mark there too. Perfect. That'll make this a lot simpler. Okay, perfect. So, before I go and I punch through this with my stitching holes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to glue my other leather onto the back of this. I just wanted to have this done now while it's a little easier to maneuver around. So, let's see here. One wanted this blue leather. I'm going to see if I have another piece of this blue that's a little smaller. Oh, perfect. So this blue was a Derby single shoulder that I got from Tandy. Okay, enough of that. Okay, so let me get my glue and work. Hold on. Okay. This one looks good. And out. Here. And first. Now this. Okay. Let's there. There. So I'll do this. I'll let you like that. And in the microphone, this. That's what you're right. But it's all that. Now you see what you like. So you're right. Okay. So. I see what's here. No. There we go. That's good. Alright. So blue. On back. Straight around. Now the wind is strong enough. Exactly. Necessary. Correct. You know, it's blue. But I want to do this. When I do this, stop. When you do this, so there we go. Alright, so we're going to let that sit off to the side and let that dry for a bit. Now, the next thing that we wanted to do was we need to have that front pocket. So when I was talking to James and Logan, I was saying, you know, let me be a little creative. Let me have a little bit of fun with this. What we're going to do is this will be the back. So like this side is up against their pants. This will be the front. So this is where the knife's coming in and out all the time. But I'm going to do that front pocket where the knife goes out of our Texas leather to give it that flourish, that design. So that means we need to cut out a piece that was where did my paper go? 4 wide at the top and then 3 at the bottom. So let's see here. Here's how we're going to do that. In order to make it simple to assemble, I'm going to do it like this. So we're going to do a rectangle, okay? And we're going to notch the corners so that when I sew it, we've got our stitching line down here and our stitching line here and here, so that it's going to wind up cupping from underneath. There will be like a little tiny corner here, which will give us that little bit of room to maneuver. So we need it to be 3.5, 4 at the top and 3.5 at the bottom. These were 3.5 in total. Where's the other one? Right, yes, because we need to give it room to go across here. So if it was just the straight across, how tall is this? This is it's an inch tall. Okay, so let me draw this out and talk out loud and see if this makes sense here, right? So I need to have a 1/4 inch on both sides for the stitching mark, and like like space around that stitching. So that's a half an inch, right? Because we do a quarter inch on each side. Then it needs to be about an inch tall on both sides. So that's going to be, so okay, so I'm going to have quarter here and a quarter here. And then I want to go one this way. So maybe 1, 1. So I'm at 2.5. Which then means I need hold on. Yeah, so this is 3.5, and then I want to do another half for my margin, so that's 4. So I need to be 4 at the bottom, and then 4.5 at the top. Okay. So 4.5 and then 4. Now honestly that is probably largely because the tapering shape on here. I'm going to have this rounded square edge shape here. We can make this work. Okay. So, let me get another piece of paper to draw this out before I cut into the actual leather. And the fire's run low. Time to put some more wood on here. Okay. Let's draw this out. So, start out 4.5. Okay. How tall do I want you to go? Okay, 5.5. So, Okay. So if that's 4.5, I'm going to go 4 at the bottom. So this here is the 5.5. This here. So I want to go 1/2 inch in from here. 1/2 inch in from here. Actually, no, 1/4 inch. I want to go 1/4 inch in from here. There's my 4. Oh, getting a text message from my wife. She's asked me if I can rotate laundry when I come back in the house after tonight. There's never enough hours in the day. Okay, so go down here, go down here. So that's 4.5 across the top, 4 across the bottom, and 5.5 tall. So let's cut this out and see how that's going to look. Okay. And let's also mark out 1/4 inch for a notch. Okay. Okay. So when we sew this on, it's going to be folded like this and like this. And like this. Okay, so you see what I'm doing here, where when we sew it on, these edges are going to be kind of like curled upside down, up from underneath. And so that's going to go on like that. Okay. Now, that's going to give us enough room for that utility knife to come in here. So, it's going to be like that. The utility knife will just slide right in like that. Okay. That's not looking too bad. Alright. So, this measures So this is about the 4.5, and then okay, here's how we're gonna do this. I know that I want it to be 4.5 wide at the top, bit of a narrowing, and then I know that I want it to be 5.5 tall. So I'm gonna cut a couple of 4.5 by 5.5 rectangles, and then kind of trim them down from there. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, and when I cut these out, I cut them this way. So in order to make sure that it kind of matches and doesn't look sort of out of place, I'm going to keep doing that same direction this time. So I want to go 5.5 down, so that's here. Where did my fabric marker pen go? Okay, and then I'm going to go 4.5 wide here. Okay, one, no, one here, one here. So, this is 4.5 at the top, 5.5 deep. I just need to mark out my 4 inch, so I got to cut a 1/4 inch from the edge here. So 1/4 inch. Okay. So then I measure from this corner down to there. And there we go. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I've measured a bit of an angle, so I'm wide at the top, narrowing down here, so I'm a 1/4 inch in on each edge, so that gives me 4 at the bottom, 4.5 at the top, 5.5 tall. So what I need to do now is just cut that little slice off, and then mark our stitching lines. Alright, so let's cut this off here. So I know a lot of the time you see people using the utility knives and like the sharp straight knives for cuts. I like being able to do a bit of both, like both the utility knives and good pair of sharp scissors. Because I find that a good pair of scissors, really good shear scissors, will rarely ever let you down. Alright, and let's mark the stitching line on here. Okay, and then, so you see how I've got this stitching line set up there. So what I'm also going to do is when I go to sew it, I'm going to take a corner punch and I'm going to punch out like the one in the corner. I'll show you in a minute. Alright, perfect. So here's what we're going to do now. My battery on my camera is running low, so I'm going to pause it here. What I'm going to do while the battery is charging is I'm going to punch the holes on this strip here because this is very straightforward. You start at the same straight edge at the top and just punch a line straight all the way down. And as long as you do the same number on the left on the right, then as long as you start with like a true straight edge, 90 degrees, then you're all set and you'll always be evenly matched. Because this is going to be going around like that. So, I'm going to pause the video here, and when my battery's charged up, I will show you where we are and pick you up from the next step. See you in a minute. Okay, and we are back now a few minutes later. Opened a beer. World is good. Okay, so what we're going to do. Okay, so let me show you what I did. So these 1-inch strips, what I did was I started at the top and just did like an even number, so like one punch on the left, one punch on the right, and so on, all the way down. So you can see, because what I'm going to do is you start at the top, or at one end, work your way around, and this way there will be more than enough punching holes to match what we're going to do here. And then I'll just, when I get to the edge, I'll just cut off like whatever last 2 or 3 we don't need, and then that way we get a nice perfect smooth cut. I also trimmed the back off of here now that this glue's had, better part of an hour, half an hour or so to start solidifying on us. And it's good and not too bad for stiffness. So we got our blue one and our red one. Okay. Now, when I was looking at that, and I'm looking at this, so this pouch is going to go across the bottom, and I was thinking this pouch may wind up being a little too tall for this knife to be easy to reach, because these guys are used to the knife kind of sticking out like that, right? And if I'm judging this right, this is going to make it so the knife is going to wind up sitting like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 1 inch. I'll start with a half an inch. I'll do 1 inch. I'll do 1 inch across the top. I'll cut that down. So let's mark that out here. So 1 inch across the top. And then, when the knife sits in there, that'll be like that. So that's not a bad size. So we're going to do that on both of these. This is what I like about doing projects like this, where I'm kind of freehanding it, kind of stumbling my way through things, is that I have a chance to, you know, grab a beer, stare at it for a minute, play with it, and just kind of see how things go, right? I'm sure anyone watching this can relate to that feeling of, that's not quite how I was planning to make this work. So, what we need to do now is, and there's one other thing. I got thinking about our loops for the pens, because, you know, we're used to being able to throw pens in there, right? And I still have the excess from that black lining strip. So, this will be the back, this will be the front, this will be the pouch, and then this strip here will go just above where that pouch is, and we're going to double it up like this kind of thing, and give ourselves some loops for the pen. So, in order to make that work, what we're going to have to do first is we're going to have to decide where we are starting our stitching holes from, because we're going to start in the center and we're going to work our way around, and that way we have like an even number all the way. So let's start with that. Let's measure out where our true center is here. So we're at 3.5 inches wide. So if we do 1 inch and 3/4, I believe that is right. Yes. So 1 inch and 3/4. So this here is our center spot at the bottom. Okay. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark from there. I'm going to mark 1 inch and 3/4 center line up here at the top, so that we have that as well. Just make sure that lines up on this way. Yes, okay, so this is our center line here. And then, so, you know what, let's cut this off right while I'm thinking about it. Okay. Yeah, this is also part of why I don't really want to get into printing, like publishing patterns, because I don't really make patterns for myself. I often buy patterns, and I do enjoy using patterns that other people have created, but I find it hard to do it myself. Okay, so this is going to go along here. So let's mark roughly about here. And let's mark our 1 and 3/4 line here. Okay, that's our 1 and 3/4. That's our 1 and 3/4. Okay. And then we'll go. So this is a 1 inch strip, so we'll mark 1 inch up from here. Okay. So what we're gonna punch a stitching line here. so that we can do like a loop like that. And we'll do the same thing on this one here. Double check and make sure that the 1 3/4 is going to work. Yeah, 1 3/4. So there's our center point at the bottom. 1 3/4 center point up here at the top. Okay, and then that roughly is there. So that's about there and there. Okay. So, oh, and we got to do our center on here as well. Now these ones, they're 4 at the bottom, I want to say. I think that's what we said. Yes, they're 4. So I can just mark my center at 2. So 2 inches. Okay. So we are now at the point where doing these things 2 at a time is about to get confusing. Up until now, we've largely basically just been cutting like the same shapes, the same sizes, the same, strips. So doing them 2 at a time has not been a problem at the moment. But now we're about to become a bit of a headache because I want to make sure that the pieces that I punch out for this one are going to match the pieces I'm going to be putting together on this one. So I'm going to pause the video. I'll reposition the camera over by the punching table, and then you'll see what I mean when I say I want to make sure everything all lines up. Okay, so we are over here at the punching table, and now this is going to make sense why I said that I wanted to do this part one section, like one set at a time. So first of all, this is my center, so I'm going to start punching from the center all the way up and around. So, and I'm using a 4mm stitching chisel from Candy. So from my center point, let's start off with the 6 is going to be too big. So we'll start with our 4-prong from here. Okay, and so you can see because I've got that layer of the blue, I'm going to be punching put a little bit more effort into making sure that I punch all the way through. But this is why I wanted to glue it first, because this way I can make sure my holes are all perfectly going to line up. And so long as I follow my line, I won't have these 2 panels be misaligned on me. So I'm going to start with this here. Now, this is going to be the front that this is going to be on. So I'm actually going to go this way on here. Okay, so you see how I'm going to be going down on the one and up on the other. Okay, so then we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that'll get us around our corner. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then 5. So here's what I want to point out to here. So I went up to here, and instead of like trying to continue along a curve, what I did was I went and I started from this straight edge here. So my number of holes are all going to match up, but what's going to happen is that this one here and this one here are going to be really kind of tight for space here. So what we're going to do to give this a little bit of room and give it some and give it so that way a little bit of give when we assemble it, we're going to take a round punch and we're going to cut that corner out. So when we sew through it, we'll still sew that hole on the back as if there's a hole here, but it's just going to be a whole lot bigger. And fun fact, this is my great-grandfather's hole punch. So here and here. Clean that up a bit. Okay, so this will be hole number 5 or 4, whatever. But this corner here, and then this is going to let us do one of these. So that way we'll all be good. Okay, so now we can keep on going around the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So I've got 1. Oh, did that again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now here my next punch is actually going to take like just a hair of off of there. So the next hole that I do on here, okay, so this hole is not going to be like perfectly tied into here. So what I want to do, where did my pen go? Damn it, I'll be right back. I am forever leaving these things behind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle this and circle this. So this way I know that no matter which direction I'm actually sewing from, I know that those holes need to line up. Circle it on the back as well. Okay? So no matter what direction I'm coming from, I know that that's where that goes. Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing going the other way. So we're going to start off with, from our center, we go 1 punch with the 4, 1 punch with the 4, and then 4 is going to be too many, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? So we got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay. And this corner, we're going to punch out. We're going to punch out with Great Grandpa's punch. Okay. So then, time for another sip of beer. Most important part of the mission. Alright, now let's go this way. And you notice, I waited until after I put the knife away in order to open my beer. 1, 2, 3. And that is because I learned a very long time ago that when you're around sharp things, you do not want to have any beer in you, because sharp things become squishy things very quickly when you've had a couple of beers. Okay, so now we're back up here. So this one, this last hole is going to be all the way through there. Okay? So I want to mark that with my pen. Where did my pen go? Here it is. There, there, and there. And there we go. So this way, I know. So it's now this is one of those kind of awkward kind of moments where it's not going to be like perfectly. It's going to be a little bit of a kitty corner kind of thing. Maybe I should not have opened that beer. You know what? Let's wait and see how it looks when it's all done. But that gives us, okay, so that gives us this. So now we can continue going around here without worrying about exact alignment. Okay, so okay, and this will line up pretty well there. Okay, perfect. So that's going to go all the way around, and then we're pretty much set. Okay, so now what we need to do, I wanted to have this mark here for where we're going to put our pens across, right? So my 6 tine punch, that's going to give us 1 on both sides as like a way to anchor the strip in, and then 4 in the middle of it. So now, if that's the top and the bottom of this, then if I do it just above there, so if I go here, that's going to give us room for the pen, and then you can have your pens and markers through here, like that, kind of. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Forgetting something. So in order for the guys to wear this on the belt, we're going to be doing something like this. Okay, so we're going to be punching 2 oblong holes. So pretend this is this piece here, right? And so we're going to feed it through. So this is your belt around your waist, like this. Okay? And that way, They can wear it anywhere on their pants that they want, and they're not going to have to worry about snaps coming apart or any nonsense like that. Because cutting, like just punching some straight holes in here, it won't go anywhere. But I need to make room for that. So they wear an 1.5-inch belt, which means I need to cut about 1.75 inches of a hole. So if I want this here and there, okay, that could work. That could still work because I can put your belt loop across the top here, and this is where your pen loop will be. You know what? Let me put it down just a hair. Let me put it so that way half of this is behind. Let's do it here, because then that way, because if that's the top of our pouch, this will be here, and then the pouch top will be there. That looks like it would be alright. So we're going to do here. Okay. Now, for this measurement, so I know I'm going to have to do one there, and then your pen, and then there. So let me grab a Sharpie, because Sharpies are going to be a little bit thicker, and if this fits a Sharpie, it'll fit anything that they wouldn't use. Okay, so if we want to fit a Sharpie in here comfortably with a bit of wiggle room, we need there. So let me get my measuring tape and see how far that is. That is 2 1/4. Okay, good to know. So we're going to punch a line. So we're going to punch this here on the edge. And then we're going to measure 2 1/4. So that'll get us to, let me go a little wider. I guess to about there. Excuse me. So up there. And then let's go another 2 1/4. Maybe a little more, about there, and a little wider than that, there we go. So this will give us room for our pen loops. That's going to go like that. Okay, so I need to cut this off with my scissors. Or, you know what? I might have a straight edge punch lying around here. Okay. There. So the other stay the same. So we take a little bit, we do quite a bit. Okay, there. There. Perfect. And So when we sew this, we're going to do this one first, and then up and around like that. Relatively simple. Okay. Now, we do need to punch our holes for the belt loop. Okay. I'm just trying to find which one I have that's a little bit wider, because I want to make it give them a little bit more width for their belts to work through. So it looks like this one here is going to be my best bet for my wider option. And so here is an 1.5" belt loop template. I'm going to have to go and punch a couple of times in order to give me the distance that I want. So let's get our marker back out and our measuring. Okay. So if my 1 3/4 is there, so if I go 3/4 of an inch here, you know what? Let me do 1 inch. Let me do 1 inch. If I do 1 inch in from the edge on both sides, then that's, you know, like an even spacing from the edge. So, and I want to go down here. So I'm going to go 1, I'm going to mark my 1 inch here. And then my 1 inch here. And this square here is 1.5 inches, which is the same size as what the belt's going to be, which is convenient. So I can mark another 1 inch hole here and another 1 inch mark here. So what I want to do is I want to when I punch this through, I want to stay on a straight line, and I want to punch so that it's going to be over top of that mark, and that will give me the clearance that I need. So let's start by drawing our straight line. It's not the absolute prettiest job in the world. I'm sure that there's someone watching that is screaming at their computer screen right now, but you know what? Whatever. You be mad at me all you want. I don't care. I'm doing what I'm doing. So, now all we gotta do is sew this thing together. So, we're gonna sew this piece together first, and then we're gonna sew the piece that goes around the edges. We're going to sew that around, and then we're going to sew this on top like that. Excuse me. And that's basically about it. Like we're pretty much in the home stretch now. So from here, what we're going to do is I am not going to record the video of me doing the sewing, because honestly, what's going to end up happening is well, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Let me turn this camera on here. So, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Uh, it's 11:30 at night, and I got half a beer to go. So I'm gonna put on a movie or a TV show or something. Maybe I'll watch some Doctor Who and sew this thing together. And then I'll come back here when I'm done and show you what the finished product looks like when it's sewn together. The thing is that the sewing bit honestly is not that complicated. It's just a simple saddle stitch. The most complicated part is just remembering to do this part first. And when I wrap around, like on my piping on the edge, remembering that I also want this, the pocket, to go on top of the piping. That's it. Like, it's really very straightforward. I'm making a very basic tool pouch. I'm just happen to be doing it in blue and Texas and black. So, alright, well, I'm gonna pause it from here. I'm gonna go finish my beer, and I'll see you in a minute. Hey there. So, it's now the next night, and I know I said that I was gonna be not showing you all of the sewing, but I got thinking, well, it's kids are in bed, got the fire going, why not show you how to do the sewing on this? Because as I'm putting this thing together, I'm realizing that I'm going to have to be careful about which order to do a couple things in as far as the sewing goes. So you're probably going to have a similar problem. So I'm going to angle this down and show you what we're up to. Okay? Alright, so here's where we are. Okay, so this is my sweet spot here. Okay. So what I did was I sewed this center strip here through there. Okay. And I'm now realizing that when I was measuring this out last night, I didn't make these two loops exactly in the center of each other. But that's okay, because that means that you're going to wind up with one a little bit bigger than the other. And the guys who are going to be using this, that I was talking to today, they're saying, like they're mostly going to be using it to put Sharpies and that kind of thing in. Worst case scenario, I can always like trim it back a little bit if I need to, but let's see how it goes for now. So this is the part that I need to talk out a little bit. So remember last night we marked with our fabric pen where our holes are going to be. So this was the top of the outside pocket, which is going to line up with that corner, right? So we're going to go like that, okay? And then this is going to go around the edge like that. So what we're going to do, I've got my thread here. Now I have way more thread set out for this than I really need for this job, but I usually kind of figure a little extra thread's not gonna hurt. It's better to have more than less, right? So what we need to do is this part here, this is where we started. This is our true straight edge. And then this is the end of the long strip that kind of tails off to the end, where I'm going to be cutting it at the eventually when it gets to butt up against each other. So we're going to start with this side first. So this side, okay, maybe I took too much thread out. Get myself all tangled up here. Once we get going, we'll be alright. Oh, bother. There we go. Got ourselves untangled here. And we got an extra knot here that we got to undo. Always happens that when I want to put something on a video, that's when things get squirrely. Okay, let's undo our knot. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the bottom of our piping first, okay? Then we're going to go through our backing here, and then we're going to go through our pen loop here, okay? Okay, so you know what I got going on there, okay? Then we're going to go through the top of our piping. Okay. And then we're going to go through, we're actually going to sew this from up to down, like this. Okay. So this is how it goes, okay? So it goes through the top, through the bottom of the piping, through the middle, 2 layers, through the piping again, and then through our outside pocket. So now we're going to grab our other side of the thread. And we're going to do the same thing on the next hole. So start from the bottom of the piping, and then through our backing panel, and then through our pen loop. Okay. And then through the top of the piping, or edge treatment, whatever you call this thing. Maybe piping is the wrong word. Edge wrap. And then through the front of this pocket. And then we're going to pull these all through so that we got an even spacing on everything. Okay, so here is how that's looking. So we got the outside edge, our 2 middle layers, and then our inside, and then the pocket. And I know it's really kind of confusing and backwards inside out right now, but trust me, it'll make sense once you get 3 or 4 stitches down. So the rest of this is just a very straightforward saddle stitch. You just got to keep in mind which layers you're going through, because basically what I'm trying to do is I'm making it so that this outside pocket is layered on top of the leather that goes around that edge wrap. So I go through here, back through here, back through the belt loop, back through the main middle board, and then back through the bottom of our piping. Okay. And then give this all a great big tight tug. So now you can see what I'm getting at that we're going to have as an effect. Okay, so we're going to have it go around the belt loop. The pen loop will be inside of here. So we got this nice smooth round edge all the way around, and then our outside pocket is going to look like it's just layered right on top of that. And so what that's going to do is that's then going to let it give us like a little bit of a curvy bit to that pocket on the outside. So from here, it's just a lot of saddle stitching. Just making sure that you go through each layer one proper step at a time. Okay. Now, at this point, I'm going through like 3 or 4, half a dozen layers of leather, so my needle's getting stuck. So let's bring out our old trusty pair of pliers. Give her a tug. Just make sure that you don't get tangled up on your threads. Make sure you grab the proper one at the back before going in here. So through here, through here, through here, and through there. Okay. And just so that you are aware, folks out there in YouTube land, that the choice of colors of thread and leather and everything, like I asked the guys specifically, what color do you want, what color combination? So this one, Logan is getting, he chose a red interior leather with the Texas background and with the purple thread. And I made sure to ask him twice, are you sure purple? Make sure I did not mishear him. So Logan, if you're watching this, I'm looking forward to seeing the look on your face when you get this, because I think it's going to look pretty cool. Now, what's also really cool about this method that we're using here is, oh, missed a hole. This is going to be super simple to repair. If one of the if a stitch ever comes undone, like it's really straightforward to run a needle and thread back all the way through it in order to tighten everything back up. So here, now you can see kind of what I'm talking about with this. So we've got our backing panel, and then we've got our edge covering, and we got our pen loop, and then we got the knife pocket with this turned edge here. So as we go around, it's going to look like that. Pretty good. So, what I'm going to do from here is I am just going to pause the video here, because as you can see behind me, pull this up here, I got a good roaring fire going, and I got a TV set beside me there. I'm going to throw in a Doctor Who episode, settle in with a beer and some sewing, and I'll show you what this looks like when I'm done. See you in a flash. And we are back. Okay, so while I was away, I had started out going up here. So you can see what I've done is I went all the way along there, all the way along, so all the way along, and now we are very nearly done. Looks not too bad. And so all the way along there, what I did was this sort of pattern here. So we got our outer edge around, and then we've got our inner edge, and then the pocket from the outside curved around from the inside. So now we are at the part where I need to pay attention again, because this is definitely too long for here. So what I've done is I counted out how many stitching holes I have left. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 stitching holes here. And then I've counted out 16 along here. So what we need to do is we need to cut here, and then that will line up perfectly with this edge here. Okay, and there. So now when I get here to hole number 16, it'll line up just like that. And there is our very nearly finished tool pouch. So I am gonna pause it here again, throw on another episode of Doctor Who, and finish this up, and then I'll let you know what it looks like when we're done. Okay, and we're back. So here is our finished tool pouch. So we got room here in the front for our utility knife, pocket knife, or pair of pliers kind of thing. Got space here for a couple of different loops here for some Sharpies or pens or that kind of thing. So not too bad. Yeah, I am looking forward to see how the guys, what the guys think of this. And so it's got a nice, smooth, clean line here where these two edges meet up. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. So, one down, one more to go, and it's 11:30. I think I should probably go to bed myself and save this one for a project for tomorrow, but not too shabby. Alright, see you in a bit. Okay, so now we've got our red one done, and now I'm working on the blue one, and I'm at this point here where I thought it might be helpful to show you on the video how I'm doing this stitch, because you start up here at the top and then you work your way all the way around, and as I'm going through I'm thinking, you know, like maybe someone watching this video may not quite understand quite what I'm doing here, and before I finish this up I should probably take a second and show you this. So I've got my one thread that's going to go here. Let me position this camera so I can turn the light on. There we go, that's better. Okay, so it's a regular, like it is just a saddle stitch, but what we're doing is we're going through our first hole here. Okay. And then we're going through this backing piece here. Okay. Alright, see, we're going through our backing piece. Then we're going through the back of our wrapping piece. So find the next hole on the back of the wrap. Okay, see what I got there? Now this is where it gets tricky. Okay. Normally, like your instinct is to go through the underside of our top piece, but we're actually going to go through the top half of it in order to give us this rolled look. Okay. So now it looks kind of funny, okay, but we take our back thread, oops, take our back thread here, we go through the underside of our top flap here, then we go back through what's now the top of our wrap, and then we go back through our centerpiece, our middle board here. Okay? And then we go through what's now the bottom of our wrap. And all the way along, you gotta be super careful that you put your needle and thread beside the other thread and not through it. Because, watch what's gonna happen here. Pull this through a little bit. Now, I still have this kind of loose here, right? So, wrap this with my fingers a couple times and give it a good solid pull, and pull her tight. So that's the stitch that we're doing. It's not a complicated stitch. It is just a saddle stitch. The big difference then is the order and the direction of the leather of which pieces we're doing. So instead, because what you could do is you could just do it all like one layer on top of another, and you have all these layers butted up against each other. You could try to do this all inside out and then try pulling and flipping it around, but I find with something as narrow as this on the edge, doing it this way, it's a little work, you're building a little callus, but the results are going to speak for themselves once you're all set. Okay? So I just wanted to show you that before I finish this up and then go all the way around. Alright, see you in a flash. Alright, and we're back. And we're done. So, not too shabby, eh? Back out some these. Back out so these things are in the frame here. So, we got ourselves our two new tool pouches here. So we got one with the red on the inside, with the purple thread, blue and black. So, yeah, not too bad. So the way these are done is we've got room in here for our utility knife and Sharpie, pen, pencil, that kind of thing. It's gonna, the guys will have to kind of work it a little bit and kind of get in shape, but you hang that through your belt loop across the top. So, like, pretend this is your waist, your belt. So you loop that through here, right? Now it's hanging off your belt at your waist, and everything's right, easy to hand. Not too bad, right? So, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm quite happy with how these turned out. I hope the guys are too. And I hope you enjoyed seeing this video of how I made these and the techniques and the style we kind of muddled our way through. What I liked about using this Texas embossed utility leather is it's got a little bit of a stiffness to it, so things with like clips can hang off here without causing any trouble. It's all done with just a plain saddle stitch, so down the road, ever comes apart, it's super easy to repair. And because we did this rolled, like rolled over kind of stitch in here, this is the kind of stitch that you would never be able to really make with a sewing machine, just the way that it's curved in there like that, which I really like being able to do stuff like that, because then you can, have something that is definitely verifiably truly handmade, right? And this this is going to last for quite a long time. I mean, I'm sure they'll eventually, wear through it and whatnot, but it'll last them for quite a while. I know if I was just using this around the house, it would last me likely the rest of my life for like just the odd handyman, odd job around the house, right? So if you're thinking about doing something like this, just a little pouch to hang off your hip to keep a screwdriver, a utility knife, and a pencil kind of thing, as you can see, it's not that hard to do. It's just a matter of, taking a few minutes and drawing it all out and going from there, right? So, it is chilly here in the shed tonight, and I've got a few other projects on the go, so I am going to sign off. But anyway, we'll see you later. Safe travels.